Hi and welcome to week 6 of Entry Level 3 English. I hope you're all well. I hope you've had a good week and thank you for all your hard work so far. So yeah, we're on week 6. So this week our objectives, we've got spellings as usual. We've got a spelling test in a minute. We're going to just have a quick review of what we did the other week, which was past simple regular verbs, and then we're going to look quickly at irregular verbs as well with the past simple. And then we're going to just briefly look at some reading exam skills, and then you're going to have some practice of that in your homework, okay? So that's what we're looking at doing today. So we'll start off with the spellings. So there are 6 spellings today, 6 spellings today. So have you got pen and paper, and are you ready? If so, we will begin. Number 1, therefore. I am thirsty, therefore I'm going to get a glass of water. Therefore. Number 2, thorough. The gardener did a thorough job of tidying up my garden. Thorough. Number 3, though. I like chocolate even though it's bad for me. I like chocolate even though it's bad for me. Though. Number 4, thumb. I have 2 thumbs and 8 fingers. Thumb. Number 5. I always seem to have very tough luck. Tough. Tough. Can you spell tough? And number 6, the last one, treasure. There is treasure at the end of the rainbow. Treasure. Okay, that's all your spellings. Listen again if you need to, but I'll put them up on the board now, okay? Okay, so just have a quick look at these spellings that you've just done. So we've got number 1, therefore, T-H-E-R-E-F-O-R-E. There's that E on the end, which is often forgotten. Thorough, difficult one to spell that. T-H-O-R-O-U-G-H. 3, though, T-H-O-U-G-H. 4, thumb, T-H-U-M-B. 5, tough, T-O-U-G-H. 6, treasure, T-R-E-S-U-R-E. Those are very tricky words, lots of silent letters in there and things like that, so always tricky, those ones. How did you do? How many did you get out of 6? How did you get on? Let me know. Okay, we're going to just pause a minute while I get the next bit up. Okay, so we're just going to have, one other thing, your spellings for next week are going to be a collection of the spellings from the last 5 weeks. Okay, so there'll be surprise spellings next week. There'll be spellings from the last 5 weeks, so they could be anything. Okay, so it's revision of your other spellings. Okay, it'll be 10 spellings from the last 5 weeks. Okay, right, so we're just going to have a quick review of past simple regular verbs. So remember, when we talk about the past, sorry, my cat, what are you doing? You're going to say hello. Are you going to say hello? You say hello. No? Oh, you want to go? Go on then, you want to go on. He's my baby. So, regular verbs. When we talk about the past, when we talk about something that's happened and it's finished and it's over, with regular verbs, we just add ed, don't we, to the ending to put it into the past. So there's lots of regular verbs. We have lots and lots, and we looked at some of those last week, and I sent you some last week, etc. We add ed, sometimes d or sometimes ied. So all of these here, we add ed to. Walk becomes walked, act becomes acted, listen becomes listened, play, played. And we add ed to these because, well, okay, it's easier if I talk the other way around. Some of them we just add d to because they've already got an e on the end. So we don't have a double e on the end, we just add a d. So receive, received, complete, completed, and we just add d. And then if we have a consonant and y, we remove the y and put ied. But if it's a vowel and y, we just add ed. Okay, so just remember that because it's quite important. So consonant y, remove the y, ied, vowel y, just add ed. If it's an e on the end, we just add d. Okay, so those are our rules for regular verbs in the past. And obviously the pronunciation as well. If you remember pronunciation, if it has a K sound on the end, if it's a K on the end of the verb, then the pronunciation of ed is t, walked, walked. So it's a t sound, walked. Acted, that has an id sound. So there's lots of words if they have, okay, so if the end of the verb is a, let me write this down and then it won't be so messy. Okay, I've just put it up on the board a bit more neatly. So, yeah, if it's got a P, F, S, sh, ch, k, z sound, p, f, s, sh, ch, k, z sound on the end of the verb, then ed sounds like a t, doesn't it? So walked, washed, buzzed. It's got that t sound at the end. So you really have to watch out pronunciation because it's really easy for you to try and pronounce it as ed. And it's definitely not ed, it's t, d, or id. Okay, so it's got different sounds, but none of them are ed. Okay, so walked, washed, buzzed. If it has a T or a D on the end of the verb, then ed sounds like id. So waited, waited, id, waited. Now waste actually has an E on the end, but because we had D, put ED on the end, it actually ends in a T sound. So we say wasted, wasted. It's still got that id sound, okay? And then all others have a D sound, so played, cried. They have a D sound, D, id, or T sound on the end of those regular verbs, and that's really important. So it's really easy to use the past simple with regular verbs. We add ed, d, or ied, and it's the same for everybody, whether it's he, she, it, I, you, they, we. It's the same for everybody. We don't have to add anything extra or change anything. The verb is the same, whoever we're talking about. So I washed the car yesterday. They washed the car yesterday. We washed the car yesterday. He washed the car yesterday. It always stays the same. And if we go into the negative form, we just add did not. And the base form of the verb. So he did not wash. Okay, so we use the base form of the verb. So he washed the car yesterday. He did not wash the car yesterday. So we add did not, and we can shorten that to didn't. He didn't wash the car. So he washed the car yesterday. He didn't wash the car yesterday. So we go back to the base form of the verb. I played football yesterday. I didn't play football yesterday. Okay, so we go back to that base form of the verb and add did not before the verb and after the subject, I, he, she, it. And it's the same with questions. Did you play football yesterday? So did goes at the beginning because it's a question word, did. Then the subject, you, he, she, it. Then the base form of the verb, play, wash, take. Oh, no, that's not a regular verb, but it would be the same anyway. Watch, waste, cry. Okay, so did plus you, he, she, it, they, we, my parents, my brother, my sister, etc. Then our base form of the verb and the rest of the sentence. So the past is simple, is really easy to use. In a positive sentence, we add ed, or the correct spelling. In a negative, we just put did not before the base form of the verb. And in a question, we just put did before the sentence. Did you, did he, did she, and then the base form of the verb. So it's really nice and easy. So regular verbs in the past simple, no problem. And then, as I say, we usually use something like yesterday, or last week, or last year, and that goes at the end of the sentence, or we can use it right at the beginning. Yesterday, I washed the car. Yesterday, I played football. So either goes right at the beginning of the sentence or right at the end of the sentence, okay? Doesn't matter which, really. Quite often it goes at the end, just more naturally maybe, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so we're going to look today at irregular verbs, okay, which are just a little bit more complicated to learn. So let me just pause. Okay, now, as I said, with verbs, in the past simple, we add ed to regular verbs, but there are a lot of irregular verbs, what we call irregular verbs. And we don't add ed to them, they just change completely. And there's no rules, there's no easy way to learn, they just change. And some of them, they're all completely different. Some of them just change one letter, some of them just change pronunciation. For example, let me just add this one, we'll look at that one as well. Some of them just change pronunciation, some of them change completely, some of them change one letter, but there's no rules. It's not easy to learn, you just have to learn them. So in the past simple, go becomes went. I went to the office yesterday. I went to the office yesterday. I went to work yesterday. I went to see my mum yesterday. So go becomes went. Completely different word. So we don't say yesterday I go to work. We say yesterday I went to work. And this is a big mistake that people make when they're learning English quite often. So if you're learning English, if English is not your first language, often you will hear people say, or you might say, yesterday I go to work. This is not correct because go changes to went when we're talking about the past. Yesterday I went to work. Eat becomes ate. Pronunciation ate. I ate fish last night for my tea. I ate fish last night for my tea. So eat becomes ate. Okay, we didn't say I eat pizza yesterday. We say I ate pizza yesterday. Drink becomes drank. At the weekend, I went to the pub and drank some wine. Okay, drink becomes drank. So we're just changing one letter there. Here we're just changing letters round. Buy becomes bought. Last week I bought a new car. Last week I bought a new car. So buy becomes bought. Have becomes had. When I was young, I had a horse. When I was young, I had a horse. Do becomes did. I did my homework last night. I did my homework last night. See becomes saw. I saw my mum yesterday. I saw my mum yesterday. Drive becomes drove. I drove to Southampton last week. I drove to Southampton last week. And read becomes read. Same spelling, but different pronunciation. It's pronounced read. So read becomes read. I read a really good book last night. I read a really good book last night. Read becomes read. So, irregular verbs. I don't know what to tell you. They're difficult to learn because they're all different and there's no rules. So you just have to learn them. In your homework this week, I'll be sending you a list of some of the common irregular verbs. Here are, these are some of the common ones. Went, ate, drank, bought, had, did, saw, drove, read. But there's obviously lots and lots. There's 200 or something to learn. But these are just some of them. But the good news is, just like regular verbs, they are the same for everybody. So he went, she went, I went, you went, they went, we went. They're the same, I had, he had, she had. It doesn't change when it's he, she or it, or when it's you or they or we. So that's the good thing. It does stay the same. And it's the same for questions and negatives. We add did not. I did not go. So it goes back to the base form when we use negatives or questions. I did not eat. I did not drink. I did not buy, I did not have, I did not do, I did not see, I did not drive, and I did not read. So when we talk negatively, I didn't, this goes back to the base form, just like for regular verbs, it's exactly the same. So I went to work yesterday, I didn't go to work yesterday. And the same for questions. I went to work yesterday, I didn't go to work yesterday, did you go to work yesterday? So went goes back to the base form for questions and negatives, and that's the same in all of the past simple, regular and irregular. I'll just put that up on the board a minute actually. And again, we used yesterday, last week, last summer, we use those kind of expressions, but it's fairly easy to use the past simple. You just have to remember what the irregular form is. So I went to excuse me, work yesterday. I did not, or shortened to didn't, go to work yesterday. Did you go to work yesterday? So you can see, for the past simple, we change go to went for positive sentences. Negative, we add did not, and this goes back to the regular, the base form of the verb. I didn't go. And for questions, we add did, and we go back to the base form of the verb. Did you go to work? So we don't say did you went. We don't say I didn't went. Okay? We only use the past, the irregular form, in positive sentences. All right? So I hope that makes some sense. Like I said, actually the past simple is quite easy to use. It's easier than a lot of the other tenses, because it's the same for he, she, it, you, they, we. It's whoever we're talking about. It's the same. We don't have to change that verb. But you do have to remember for which ones are irregular and which ones are regular. And that's obviously the tricky bit. And with making negatives and questions, it's quite easy because we use the base form of the verb with didn't or did. All right? Okay, so I'll send you some practice of that, obviously. Okay, this week as well, I'm going to send you some homework to practice your exam skills for your reading exam. So the next couple of weeks we'll do a few more reading exam skills, and then a couple of reading exam tests, and then hopefully you can do your test, and then that will be finished and out the way. So just a couple of skills. Picking out the main point. When you do your reading exam, or when you read anything, at work or at home, you need to decide what the main point of of the text is, you know, what's its purpose. And picking at that main point sometimes can be kind of tricky, like what's this actually about? There are a few tips that we can use to help us. Always look in the first paragraph. The first paragraph usually tells you what the main point of the text is about. Also look for important words or key words, you know, that will help us. And look at the pictures that might be in the document or on the text. That will help us too. Also, when you get asked questions in your exam, the key words in the questions will help you find information. So if we look at this question, for example, when can you take part in an exercise class? So when would suggest we're talking about a time or a date. Yeah, when, you know, like that's a time or a date, isn't it? A day or a time, or a time of year or something. When. Okay, take part. What's another word for take part? So what else does take part mean? It means to do. You take part in something, you do something. You can partake, which is another word for take part. Exercise class. Okay, so something to do with exercise. You know, what other words are there for exercise? Like fitness, etc. So when we look through text and I'm looking to answer this question, I'm going to be looking for times and dates. So here I've got something, Wednesday at 2. Take part, do, and exercise, aerobics. Aerobics is exercise. So here you can do an aerobics class on Wednesday at 2 p.m. So when can you take part in an exercise class? I can take part in an exercise class on Wednesday at 2 p.m. So when you're looking through all this lots of text you have to read to find your answers, remember to look at the question really carefully and try and find your answer in that text by finding similar words, words that mean the same, or looking for the information like when, so that's going to be a date or a time. If it was how much, you'd be looking for a price. If it was how often, you'd be looking for something like twice a week or 2 times. So, you know, look at the questions really carefully to find your answers. So I'm going to send you some practice of finding information in text so that you can practice that reading, okay? I'm going to send you some past simple practice for today for irregular verbs, as well as a little video to watch so you can hear the pronunciation of some of the words, some of the verbs, and then there's a bit of practice that goes with that, okay? And don't forget, spellings next week will be random, surprise, okay? So I'll see you next week, and look after yourselves and take care. Bye guys, bye.